everybody can do some sort of data analysis, and like that's the beautiful thing. I think sometimes the double-edged sword is that you've kind of, as a data organization or data and analytics team within an organization, you have to win the trust of those business users, those stakeholders, to say, hey, this might be the moment where we need to kind of do a deeper analysis. And so I think the most successful thing is, the trick is to really build that relationship and embed yourself as an analyst. Like, data can't be a team in some other company, in some other like office that you interact with Jira tickets and emails. Your analyst should be embedded in your team as much as possible, even if it's a centralized model. I do think smaller companies benefit from centralized models. Each of the individuals in that team should be kind of anchored or seconded or associated with one or two stakeholder groups so that they know the domain and they have what I would describe as a non-transactional relationship. Like a transactional relationship being, here's a ticket, give me an answer. A non-transactional relationship is where there's a dialogue, there's trust, you understand each other. I would even argue to say, like, if it's a really good analyst and you've embedded well, the analyst could do the stakeholders' job for a week if they're all out on vacation. Like, I think that's the aspirational level of integration. And so that's how you get there, of making sure you don't get to analysis paralysis, but you also don't move so quick, is that you actually have an analyst that's embedded that feels like parts of the team.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the eMarketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the eMarketing Association. Most of my day is spent running Did It, a digital-first marketing agency. Also on Truth Nutrition, and run a nonprofit called Giving Forward. So I hear that data is the new gold. So that's why I'm super excited to be chatting with Scott Breitenother, who runs a consultancy essentially called Brooklyn Data, which I think got acquired recently. So why don't you give us a quick elevator pitch or origin story for Brooklyn Data?
Ooh, which one do you want? Do you want both?
I don't know. Can you fit them all into an elevator pitch, or is that?
It's hard to do both in elevator, but I'll try. Right. I guess my origin story is, former management consultant that ended up doing data at a startup at the right place, at the right time, when all this kind of stuff was just booming. I ended up being kind of in this great spot where technologies we all think are leading technologies today, like Snowflake, dbt, Databricks, were just coming out. And that's when I got into data, and that's when I got into helping everybody with data. And so what does Brooklyn Data do? We're a data consultancy that does just that. From my early days, we were, helping small, venture-backed startups to build their data strategy, implement data warehouses, and kind of unlock value from their data. And now we're doing that for Fortune 500s. The only thing that's changed is the technology has got more mature, but we're still implementing those same great products like Snowflake and dbt, just now at a far bigger scale with far greater complexity.
That actually brings up an interesting point I'd love your thoughts on, which is, sure. You mentioned that you sort of went from the smaller to medium-sized organizations up into the enterprise level organizations. And, funny thing about data is the more of it you have, the quicker you can get statistical significance on any analysis.
Totally.
Which creates this asymmetry where you've got sort of like the data haves and the data have-nots, even if they're using the same technology, right? Because some of them can get statistically validated in a day and others have to wait a month. And so how do you recommend like the mid-sized to small organizations that are sort of looking to take advantage of the nuggets that are in their data, the gold that's in their data or the oil that's in their data, and they don't necessarily have the advantage of a P&G that can have the results of an experiment in 10 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say is I agree that having a statistical significant conclusion is always like the gold standard, what you want to go for. But I mean, when you're an early stage company, and the difference between just kind of looking outside and seeing what the weather is versus doing some rudimentary analysis is still great. I mean, we're not trying to beat Facebook or P&G at the level of rigor. We're just trying to be better today than we were the day before. And so I don't think that there's like this, yes, you want to be better every day, but you don't need the perfect analysis. People have been making decisions since there's been people. We're just hoping that, the more data people have, the better decisions they can make. But I also say is that, yes, there's things, where statistical significance is important, like doing an A/B test. But there's also, hey, what were our sales yesterday? Or what's our lifetime value? And those types of analysis, you don't need large samples of data. It's not even analysis. You're just kind of getting to just like descriptive reporting of your business. And I mean, we work with companies from early seed stage startups to Fortune 500s, and I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised, but it always surprises me how many organizations even don't have the foundational infrastructure and team and process to turn around questions quickly. What was our sales of our biggest customer last quarter? Well, I don't know. Each of the regions maintains their books separately, and then we've got to roll it up. We have a quarterly exercise. Like, that's not even statistical significance we're talking about. That's just kind of getting it all in one place and making good decisions.
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously bad data in, bad decisions out, or missing data in, then
Yeah.
an inability to make the decision. So, do you find that some of the lowest hanging fruit when you get brought on, even for some enterprise level organizations, is just foundational?
Totally. I mean, I always kind of believe this, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, where at the top you've got, it kind of goes from raw data to kind of clean data that you can analyze, to reports, to analysis, to recommendations, to actually kind of, autonomous models that are just making decisions on their own. You got to start at the bottom. And so that's what we're really good at, is helping our clients build that foundation, just go to every single step. What I would say is, like, you don't have to finish every layer before you go to the next step. You could start in specific domains within your business, with start in marketing, start in logistics, and kind of transcend those levels faster, versus it's not like, okay, we need to get every data set from every part of our business in one data warehouse before we even start to build a report. In fact, I think it's the opposite. Even if it's a gigantic multi-year initiative for an organization, let's chunk it out into, like, quarters, months, sprints, where we actually have products that are shipping and people are using it. And I mean, this is kind of a learning that I've had over my career. It's like, that's definitely not the most efficient. The most efficient way to do it is to, let's focus on ingestion, have the team do that, and then we focus on something else. But what's more important than efficiency is speed to value. A data in a data warehouse, I'm not going to say it's no value, but it's not nearly as much value as reports, analysis, and actually using the data. Data really doesn't create value until it creates leads to a decision or an action. And so the sooner that we can get our clients there, even if it is in one domain, versus getting their entire business there, means that you get more speed to value, you get more feedback from the company, and then just kind of, you get trust, and you build on that. We all have these horror stories of projects we've seen at various companies where it's 12 months and everyone's like, what are we getting? And you never really produce anything. And you just got to be oriented on shipping and shipping fast, even in large companies.
Yeah, I love the concept of speed to value. Partially because if it just results in a bunch of small course corrections along the way, each of those course corrections has value, sometimes multiplicative value, right?
Agreed.
So you have one team that had an aha moment about AOV or lifetime value, and another group had an epiphany about more efficient media buying. Those actually end up multiplying against each other, right? Because each of those became more efficient.
Exactly. And I mean, and if you were even if you were going to have that epiphany in 12 months, if you got all waited and did it like the efficient way and get all the data in this, like, even pulling it forward 12 months means 12 months more of that value of it. And
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of pays for itself.
So sometimes layered into the decision making around things that are data related is a sort of opportunity cost, right? The cost of doing nothing, right? Or waiting around while the data gets analyzed, or
Yeah.
waiting around while you do a deeper data dive.
Yeah.
So, how do you recommend people sort of factor that into ROI? Meaning, you don't want you want that speed, right? Speed to value ratio, so that you can uh, recognize the gains more quickly.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And I'll say it's the good thing is, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. The good thing is like everyone's an analyst in an organization. They have the world's best BI tool, which is Excel. And I still like, it's my first love in data. And it's like I still have such a soft spot for whether it's Excel or Google Sheets or whatever spreadsheet. Like everybody can do some sort of data analysis, and like that's the beautiful thing. I think sometimes the double-edged sword is that you've kind of, as a data organization or data and analytics team within an organization, you have to win the trust of those business users, those stakeholders, to say, hey, this might be the moment where we need to kind of do a deeper analysis. And so I think the most successful thing is, the trick is to really build that relationship and embed yourself as an analyst. Like data can't be a team in some other company, in some other like office that you interact with Jira tickets and emails. Your analyst should be embedded in your team as much as possible, even if it's a centralized model. I do think smaller companies benefit from centralized models. Each of the individuals in that team should be kind of anchored or seconded or associated with one or two stakeholder groups so that they know the domain and they have what I would describe as a non-transactional relationship. Like a transactional relationship being, here's a ticket, give me an answer. A non-transactional relationship is where there's a dialogue, there's trust, you understand each other. I would even argue to say, like, if it's a really good analyst and you've embedded well, the analyst could do the stakeholders' job for a week if they're all out on vacation. Like, I think that's the aspirational level of integration. And so that's how you get there, of making sure you don't get to analysis paralysis, but you also don't move so quick, is that you actually have an analyst that's embedded that feels like parts of the team. The one counterpoint I would say is, I'm a big believer that people shouldn't grade their own homework and that analysts should bring a level of objectivity. And so whether that's kind of by the nature of the individual and how they're trained, or the fact that there's a solid line, dotted line relationship, maybe dotted to the stakeholders, solid to a centralized data team, I think having some sort of neutral accountability to another team to make sure that we're not always interpreting the data how we want to interpret it, we're interpreting how it should interpret. Ooh, I covered a lot of points there. I guess. What do you think?
Now those are all great points. It got me thinking about the extent to which analysts get used to certain things, and then sometimes their managers get used to certain reports that may or may not be as useful as they look, right?
Yep.
It's sort of like, well, it must be true, it was in the Excel spreadsheet, right? So you have to sort of be careful on that. And factoring into that is the sort of, I wouldn't really call it tech debt. Like tech debt exists in more of a pure programming infrastructure perspective, but there's probably sort of a data equivalent of tech debt, which is, we've been using this AS400 to keep track of this information for 27 years. Do we really need to move it anywhere else, or like should we really put the data in a different place, or can we continue to use that creaky old database?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Well, the other thing is, I love tech debt. And I'll tell you why. I love tech debt because only successful companies have tech debt. That's like, congratulations. You've been successful enough to outlast and grow your infrastructure. Congratulations. Like 99.9% of companies fail before they outgrow their infrastructure.
Right.
It's like, that's like a very privileged problem to have. Yeah. That you have grown so well and that you have lasted so long that you've lasted beyond your technology. So like, pat on your back if you have tech debt. What we've had a lot of success with is is working with those systems. And we're working with a company right now. Speak of AS400, getting data out of AS400. Understanding. I mean, the trick is, you've got to design reports, and you've got to, talk to the engineer that's been there for 20 years, who can help you design those reports. You take those reports and you extract it to kind of a data warehouse like Snowflake, and then you can use that and empower other stakeholders. But really, I guess, chunking out the different pieces that need to be changed. Like, I think everybody in AS400 knows they need to get off of AS400. But it doesn't mean, oh, well, we can't build a data warehouse because we're still in AS400. Like, let's work with it. Let's kind of retrofit our modern data stack onto our current stack, because, like we were saying before, it's speed to value. I'm just a big believer in doing things in parallel instead of in sequence. Yes, every single project planner would say the dependency chart is we need to get off AS400, and then we'll move over. Let's just listen. Let's build an ingestion pipeline that we know we will not be happy to still be using in 2 years, if we're still using in 2 years, but it's good enough to get data out of AS400. It doesn't have the redundancies that we would have built, but like, ideally, we're off of AS400 by then. And so, my advice is to compartmentalize it and know that, and accept that there are various levels of redundancy and quality. Like, the engineer in me and all of us likes to build everything super robust, but just know that sometimes when you're retrofitting, it makes more sense to build more of a disposable bridge between the old system and the new system, because ideally you won't be on the old system long. Though, anytime I thought I was going to be off an old system, it has taken at least 2 times longer than I thought to be off of that old system. So
yeah, that's the same way when we're building new systems, under some of my incubators or whatever. It always takes twice as long to build stuff as you expect. So one of the other related issues is the area of the companies when they succeed in spite of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Which is sort of what you said, like you have the privilege of tech debt. Those companies also tend to have the greatest inertia and potentially internal fiefdoms, people sort of owning things that perhaps were no longer in existence. Like, I'm in charge of the appendix. Well, you don't actually need the appendix anymore, like evolutionarily. So being in charge of the appendix is great, but we don't need the appendix, right? So how do you recommend that sort of the senior team work within the sort of political constraints of situations like that, when there's internal HR inertia or human capital inertia?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, I like to think every single data challenge and opportunity is a people challenge or opportunity. Data and technology might just mean how we execute it, but data is inherently people. People generate data. People consume data. People understand the definitions. People are going to act on it. And so, in any project, whether it's at a 200-year-old company or a 5-year-old company, we're dealing with personalities. We're helping training people. We're navigating change. I'm a big fan of just like carrot and stick. Carrot being, I'm going to help you, stakeholder, look like a hero. I'm going to give you the reports that you need. I'm going to do it faster. I'm going to do the job. Say you had take, a day reporting every single week. I'm going to do that for you. I'm not even going to ask anything for return, but slowly I'm going to automate it. And then I'm going to layer on insights. And then I'm going to put in a BI platform where you can explore yourself. And before you know it, you're going to be in a meeting and be like, oh, well, let me pull up this report. And it's going to be the ones that I've developed. On the flip side, you need some top-down stick. And so you need a CEO or top leadership that says, like, don't make a recommendation or come to a meeting with a proposal unless you have data. And so it's like that, like, pincer move of just enablement, but also really making sure that someone is setting the tone. Where the organizations we have been most successful in kind of making those changes are ones where there's kind of top-down buy-in. I think it just makes it so much easier. We definitely come into projects where a stakeholder is kind of using us as like a forcing function because they might not be getting the support from their technology team, from their data team. And that's trickier to navigate. But I will say is at least on the Brooklyn data side, our clients like refer to us as, like I say, the least consulting firm like consulting firm, where yes, we do the deck, the PowerPoint decks for strategy and to get everyone on the same page, but pretty soon we're rolling up our sleeves and slinging code. We're foremost a company made of practitioners who have taught themselves consulting versus consultants that have taught themselves the technology. And so we tend to, show a lot of knowledge and value. And I do think that stakeholders, both business and technically, fiefdom or not, do kind of respect when someone comes in and is knowledgeable and not just a deck maker. That being said, there's always someone in every organization, and that's the point where if you're really getting resistance from one team or one person or one function, you escalate and say, hey, is the juice worth the squeeze to push through this, or do we just kind of lean into where we're getting momentum? It's like supply chain's really just being resistant. Marketing team is like all over this. Can we reallocate resources? And I think unless there's a real strategic reason where we need to crack this nut, you kind of just like, there are so many infinite opportunities to improve a business. Why swim upstream? Like, I mean, like, find the ones where and it's not just us taking the easy route, it's speed to value. I mean, if we can create equal value in either organization, one we can do in 2 months, one it's we'll drag them across the finish line in 12 months. Every organization is going to say the 2 months.
Yeah, and what I like about that philosophy is the fact that internally, when the case is made, right, then maybe that team that was sort of lagging a bit suddenly realizes that it's going to make their lives better, it's going to make their jobs easier, it's going to have them deliver value. Maybe they can go home at 5:30 instead of 8:30. There's all sorts of other benefits that accrue once you sort of plowed through and implemented. There's benefits there.
But the thing is, you also you've got to, when they do send you that email or that Teams or Slack message, you can't say like, haha, I told you so, or now get in line. It's just like, you just say, awesome, can't wait, want to hop on a call this afternoon. I mean, like, there is there's no scorekeeping, there's no right. I was right. I mean, as long as the organization succeeds, everyone tends to succeed. And I guess in my experience, the people that do good work and always it gets noticed. And so in general, just make everybody look like a hero. And right. I think it works well for everyone.
So one thing we didn't touch on, which is of course the buzzword of the last 2 years, is AI, right?
Yeah, and I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Rumor has it it's going to be hot, but it's moving in parallel, right? It's one word that's used generically for a lot of different things, from vector databases that do really fascinating things to changes in sort of natural language-based reporting, which of course also intersects with data. So where do you see the biggest opportunities as we sort of maybe make people's jobs a little bit easier, right? By looking at companies that are deploying AI in interesting ways within the data ecosystem.
Yeah, I think the first thing I will say is that not every company needs to instantly go and train their own model. Go build this kind of 100% AI team. For a lot of organizations, they will experience AI through their SaaS tools, through things like Salesforce, Snowflake, or any of these technologies that have built-in SaaS tools. Like, I think only very specific companies will have a need to like roll their own models from scratch. It's been up a vector database. There are very specific applications and very specific companies that do, and I think that's very important. But I say the vast majority of companies will experience AI through the SaaS tools they already have. I mean, so I think there's less of an existential need for every single company to roll their own model. I do think every SaaS company needs to have an AI aspect of their product or they're dead. I mean, I think that's table stakes now. So where I think we'll be is most companies will experience AI through their kind of enterprise SaaS tools, but they'll also kind of need to get really comfortable with using tools like ChatGPT. It's today's Google, and so and Copilot. So I mean, I think finding out ways to use AI as an individual and as an organization to speed yourself up in productivity. I think right now we're in the very early days of like, you know, what were the pre-Google search engines like Dogpile and like all those other ones? Like they have just
AltaVista, Excite, Lycos,
they've just come out, and you know the people that are using them are finding stuff faster than the people who are not. But it's not like noticeable yet.
Yeah.
2 years from now, if you are not using, you know, some sort of, you know, chat interfaced GPT bot as your kind of helper to draft emails, to do primary research, to get the first version of your storyboard, to, you know, help you write a proposal, I think you're going to be out of a job. I mean, I think just like it's the stakes are higher. And so I do think organizations need to be really thoughtful about how they approach AI. They need to have an AI strategy. But I don't think that strategy is to train their own models and create their own knowledge base. I mean, I think the progress of the SaaS tools is pretty tremendous. But there's lots of things to navigate within those SaaS tools, like what can you let them train on? Like there's some very specific things you have to look at and be thoughtful in how you engage. Like don't use a kind of the free public ChatGPT, use enterprise. Those are the things that organizations will have to think about. And of course, at the bottom of all this is like a strong data foundation is, you know, remember that Maslow's hierarchy of needs to, you know, data needs. You start with that data foundation. It does make everything easier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, certainly the early adopters of those chat-based tools will, you know, lead the way for everybody. What's interesting is they're the ones essentially training the AIs, right? Because they're the ones interacting with the AIs and making the AIs better.
Yeah.
Which is why I think some of the AI platforms that are out now have an interesting early advantage, right? Because they get more training data in earlier. One of the things, you know, wearing the marketing hat that I see a lot in the Did It teams now is folks are asking about LLMO, right? Large language model optimization, which is this recognition that, well, I used to do SEO to optimize the search engine results page so that I was more likely to show up there. Well, what if there is no search engine results page?
Yeah.
What if it's just a recommendation from a chatbot and there's, you know, already 3 or 4 that are heavily used, and they don't all use the identical algorithm, but they're all based on the same general concepts about content ingestion. And, you know, there are things you can do to train the AI and make the large language chatbot AIs to have them potentially prefer you in a I guess you call it a chat result, if not a search result. So where do you see that going? You know, because that feeds its way into sort of the semi-autonomous or autonomous agents, like where you basically ask, you know, ask something smart, right, to just do something for you, but only if a particular set of conditions, you know, is right. Like, you know, only buy me this stock if this happens, or only book me that flight if this happens, or whatever. So it's really like early days of that. I know that may not be in your particular business wheelhouse, right? But it is really.
I have opinions. I always have opinions. I might not be an expert, but at least I have opinions, for better, for worse. I mean, I do think, to your point, like search engine optimization, like the dark art of SEO is kind of extending into kind of the AI chat, chat interface optimization. And I think it is just like SEO. It's a dark art. You know, no one's going to publish. They might publish major, like, you know, ChatGPT 4, then 4.5, then 5. Like, you'll get that, but it's constantly being trained. It's constantly learning. You know, you're always going to have to revalidate your assumptions. I think there's a lot of job security with these SEO folks, as long as they become AI optimization folks as well. I think that's definitely going to be the future. And I would say right now, we kind of talk about them as two separate fields. 2-3 years from now, we won't. I think like it will just be, and I don't even know what it will be called, whether it's like search and AI optimization, or maybe it's just all called SEO. But the distinction that we are discussing right now will not exist.
Right. Yeah, I mean, already, Perplexity is essentially a hybrid, right? It's got elements of a search engine results page and a chatbot wheeled into one. So who knows what the next interfaces will be, and how people will have to optimize for it. I mean, the good thing is, yeah, I mean, obviously I've been doing SEO since before Google was founded. So, and you mentioned those search engines earlier. I have the, I guess, dubious distinction of having used all of them, Alta Vista, Lycos, Excite, and others. And, Google obviously changed the game, and now I think it's sort of the LLMs are changing the game again, right? And marketers,
and even like paid search is going to be changing dramatically.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the biggest change to performance marketing and marketing general since the internet, it almost feels like.
Yeah, that may well be true, and it's so early innings now that anybody who claims that they know where things are going, unless, even if they work for ChatGPT, I'm not sure that they could tell you where things are. I mean, the latest models that just got released this week or last week are pretty mind blowing of what they can do. I still think there's room for improvement actually in the areas of data. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because that's sort of an area of weakness that a lot of these large language models have, is that they tend to puke up if you give them large data sets to look at. And do you feel like there are separate entities or platforms that will solve for that independently, or do you feel like the big players in the large language models will actually get better at training their models to handle things like, okay, here's a 200,000 record CSV, and I want to do the following things with it, right? Append it or analyze it or whatever. Any predictions there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great call out. I think we're at a point where I wouldn't trust any of the kind of the models today to do analysis. I mean, I think they're a good starting point. They're a good sounding board, both for analysis, for creative, you name it. I do think whatever your field is, they're a good kind of rubber duck. They're a good sounding board. But we do have these issues where you see all these posts. It's like, is 2.11, bigger than 2.9 or something like that, and it won't know. I think that the generalized models will get much better with kind of analytical and numerical logic. That being said, I think it'll be a long time, if ever, until they catch up with domain-specific items. So, marketing attribution. I think that you can, even now and with greater confidence over the next 18 months, ask, hey, what were sales like to a generic model, or in this data, or chart it up, or show me this trend and this trend, build this dashboard that shows this. I think that's there and getting better and better and better. I don't know if in the next couple of years I'll still feel comfortable saying, hey, here's my sales and spend data broken out by DMA, build me kind of some sort of attribution or MMM. I think that's going to take a long time, but I do think there are going to be specialist offerings there, domain specific, that are going to get good faster. And I think that's the question is generalized model versus specialized models, and where they'll converge. And of course, like, I think in 20 years it'll all converge into the singularity, and one model will be able to do everything. But I do think you'll be piecing things together. But the generalized models will get better and better and better. It's going to get spooky.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Whether generalized models actually end up farming out certain queries to a specialized model,
Yeah.
almost becoming like a meta, right? That it just figures out what's going to be the best method to solve this problem, or what's going to be the best analysis methodology to solve that problem. And then whether that gets done via APIs or they all just get gobbled up by large players who shall remain nameless,
Yeah.
we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
And I think the money will be the motivator. The problems that people can charge the most dollars for to solve, and those domains will be the ones that get the kind of those domain specific solutions first. And I totally agree with you. It's like it's going to be really interesting to see how those kind of large players navigate this.
Right, right. Anything we should have covered about the power of data that we didn't talk about earlier?
Yeah, but I think the things that excite me more and more is using the data for personalization. And I'm sure this kind of resonates with you. I mean, we've been working with our clients for so many years to get the data in one place to answer questions, to analyze, to make decisions. But that same data can be super powerful to help segment and activate customers and in whatever industry you're in. And it's kind of shocking. It could be obviously in the classic e-commerce industries, no brainer. But it's also in healthcare and hospitals. How do as individuals, we have this kind of expectation of personalization from wherever we go. We expect our providers to our people we're buying from to know our history, our preferences, and whether it's a doctor's office or an e-commerce store, it's becoming more and more important. And then it's also becoming table stakes, because in every industry there's going to be folks that are innovating there and on the kind of the leading edge of using personalization and everything they know about you. And obviously got to navigate the creepy factor and really develop trust with your customers to do that. But we've had a lot of success working with our clients to take that data, everything they know about you, to push that to email interactions, to product recommendations, even to customizing the website and creating a more personalized experience. And it's getting easier every day. And I think, like, going back to our last topic, I think it's connected to AI as well, because if you think about it, you can only create as many segments as you can create kind of different experiences. And so the limiting factor often is creative or copy, or creating a number of experiences. And so the ability to use AI to generate more, copy and experiences, to go from having 2 segments to 3 segments to 1,000 segments and providing a different experience. I think that's a big unlock. I don't think we're there yet where I would allow an AI model to autonomously generate experiences, but it can be a multiplier in spinning things up, and then a human can be the loop. And so all full circle, it's like having a strong data foundation, not just decision making, but really personalizing experiences, has been a huge unlock for our clients in all industries.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating to watch, in particular, to the extent that some of the larger players, in the interests of serving the desires of usually a minority of their customers who would prefer to not have their data stored and not experience the personalization, because they believe that their privacy is more important than the personalization. I think increasingly those people who value privacy over personalization, their experiences are going to suck.
Oh yeah.
And
as someone that does value privacy and unchecks a lot of boxes, or checks a lot of boxes, I do expect that you just kind of get this whiff of of convenience, and you're like, shoot, it's like this is, and then you can't go back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, never mind, it's all right. Everybody, they can know my life history. It's making my life better.
And so I think what you'll see is, just like any technology, you'll have the people that are all in and wearing the Google glasses, and or you'll have the people in 30 years that are doing it, but we'll all be doing it at some point.
Right.
I do think there needs to be a little bit more safeguards. It does feel currently like it's binary. You check the box or you don't check the box. There isn't the granularity of what I would like to share. Would an individual like to share to a models to train and personalize the experience? And
Right.
I think that I would hope that that's where it gets. Maybe everybody just gets worn down and gets the whiff of convenience and then is just all in and checks that one box. But like, I have to think there's going to be a little bit more granularity of permissioning. And that might even be a regulatory issue. I might even think that would come from more regulatory pressure than anything.
Yeah, I guess the other, going down a crazy rabbit hole, the other problem with that is if a system knows your preferences, you can create a self-fulfilling prophecy where it doesn't expose you to new things, right? I mean, certainly in the social media ecosystem, that's been.
Well, I mean, I listen to the same music over and over again just because, Spotify thinks I like one thing. I remember that one time when I guess my daughter was using it back in the day, and I was working, and then I realized I'd been listening to Moana for the last hour. And I think you just do get in these like click hole type. It thinks you like one thing, and it's real. You almost, I mean, I'm sure you experience this too. You kind of have to like actively unlike things to retrain the model to what you actually like. I totally get that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the extent to which, the various industries figure out how to, constantly throw in novelty, right? To allow the system to get smarter about what you really like, as opposed to the self-fulfilling prophecy of just the loop, right?
Yeah.
Reinforcing itself. And
I would say, and it's funny because for us, it feels like something we have to think about. I do think our kids, it's just going to be so natural, like, because we've seen the before and after. And so we think about privacy and all that. I think our, this next generation isn't going to worry about checking the boxes. They're going to think they know everything about me anyway.
Right.
So I think we're just in transitional generations,
Yeah.
And getting used to it. And this is all of our reaction of transitional generations reacting to AI and personalization.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks, Scott, for going down a bunch of data-related rabbit holes and AI-related rabbit holes. Appreciate you sharing your viewpoint on the podcast.
Anytime. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.